Good afternoon. It is Friday, and that means it is time for our lunch and learn. Now, today, I have mixed feelings about this report because, honest engine, I love chocolate. The darker the chocolate, the more bitter the chocolate, the more I like it. Don't like white chocolate, don't really care for milk chocolate all that much, but I really enjoy dark chocolate. And this report tells us that if we overindulge, and I do not overindulge, okay? I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But if we overindulge, that we are risking heavy metal toxicity. Now, I want you to understand that there is a difference between natural metals that are found in the soil and synthetic metals that we get from our chemical processes, such as fertilizer. So fertilizer is made from wastewater recycling, and they add all kinds of chemicals to it, and they have heavy metals in there. That is not the same as soil having metals in it, because we know that that's what it does. So I just want to give you that little bit of information as we move forward. Not that we should be on purpose consuming any kind of metals. That's not what we want to do. However, I don't necessarily want to give up my chocolate either. And so we're going to be talking about that today. So just recently published, July the 31st, a new study in the Frontiers of Nutrition suggests that popular dark chocolate products may contain a worrisome amount of heavy metals, particularly lead and cadmium. Now, just going to give you a little tidbit here. Cadmium is the main heavy metal that's found in tobacco products. So kind of giving you some perspective here. In the study that was conducted from the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Science Consumer Lab, analyzed 72 dark chocolate and cocoa products sold in the USA, but grown either here or in Europe from 2014 to 2022. And so their findings are what we're going to be talking about with heavy metal in our chocolate products. So dark chocolate has long been touted as a health benefit. It has a lot of antioxidants, and we agree that we want a lot of antioxidants. Antioxidants stop the free radical damage, the oxidative stress in our cells. We all have it. And antioxidants help with that. And so people can maybe be thinking that, oh, well, if I consume a pound of chocolate a day, I'm doing something good for my antioxidants. And so maybe so, but maybe you're also adding to your heavy metal burden. And so we don't want to do that. So consumer media outlets and independent testing agencies were all in on this, including Consumer Reports and As You Sow. Now, I had never heard of As You Sow, S-O-W. What you plant in the ground, okay? Both of those have highlighted the issue of heavy metals in chocolates. So the Consumer Reports found that the heavy metals in popular chocolate brands include Hershey's, Theo, now I've never heard of Theo, Trader Joe's, Godiva, of course we all know and love Godiva, and then Hu, H-U, I've never heard of that brand. The Equal Exchange, I've never heard of that brand. According to a 2022 report by As You Sow, revealed that the heavy metals in various chocolate products from 2014 to 2017. These earlier studies raised concerns, and so the later studies show that there have been some improvement in the heavy metal content of chocolate. So this is good. They're saying that the most vulnerable of us are pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and children. So we all know we should not be giving children sweets, but we all know that we do. Hopefully we don't do it too often. But given these concerns, Leigh Frame, F-R-A-M-E, who is the director of integrative medicine at George Washington University, she was the co-lead in the study. She explored the significance of this contamination. And this is a direct quote from her. She says, "We know that chocolate is a plant that is particularly good at absorbing heavy metals in the soil, and they are grown in areas where there are heavy metals in the soil. So it seems like a logical area of concern. Also, people think of chocolate as a supplement. Okay, we just talked about that. So they tested to see if consuming chocolate as a supplement had any kind of health benefits. So they designed this study. So this study included popular cocoa products such as Ghirardelli, which of course is my absolute favorite, Hu, and Lily's. 365 by Whole Foods, never had that. Nestle, Now Real Food, Bakers, and Good and Gaither from 2014 to 2022. All of the products were produced, but only produced in the United States and Europe, but only sold here in the United States. So it only accounts for the population here. The products were divided into 4 cohorts based on the years of purchase: 2014, 2016, 2019, and 2022. All of the products were tested for lead, cadmium, and arsenic, and 2 standards were used to assess the levels of contamination. So the U.S. Food and Drug Administration established interim levels for the following allowable intake: lead, 2.2 micrograms per day for children younger than 7, 8.8 micrograms for women of childbearing age. I'll get it right. Personally, I don't think there's any level of lead that is acceptable. So again, you've got to differentiate between the lead that comes from chemical processes and the lead that's found in the soil that is a naturally occurring product. I believe, I don't have any statistics to show this, but I believe that God is really good and that he's really smart, and that metals that are occurring in the soil and plants that take up metals from the soil are in a form that are not particularly hazardous to humans as we eat things from the soil. Conversely, heavy metals that are synthetically made from a lab, from a chemical plant, those are different. Their molecules are somewhat different, and the body responds to them in a very different way. So we want to make sure that we understand that we could be getting heavy metal toxicity from the environment, not necessarily the food. And there are ways to get heavy metals out of the body. There are ways that we can mitigate that, but we need to be aware of what's going on. While the FDA has established these intake levels, allowable intake levels, it has not set official limits for cadmium or arsenic. I don't know if you remember a few years back, there was a big scare about apple juice, children having apple juice that had arsenic in it. There's another certifying body that's called California Proposition 65, or just Prop 65, that has a more stringent state level regulation for establishing the minimal allowable dose levels. So lead is 0.5 milligrams per day, cadmium 4.1 milligrams per day, and then arsenic 10 milligrams per day. Now, obviously, we don't want to be out consuming these things on purpose, just throwing that out there. Want to say also with this California Prop 65, a lot of products come into the clinic that have a label on it saying, according to California Prop 65, this product could contain cancer-causing chemicals, blah, 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 blah. That is a California-specific disclaimer, and we have found some products that have this disclaimer on there that don't have any of the chemicals that they're concerned about that are in there. So I'm not sure exactly why we're seeing this on our products, but just understand that the California Prop 65 has a much much more stringent level that they allow. It's the same with gasoline. I don't know if you've traveled, but you can have X amount of lead in the gasoline in all the other states, but you have to have a much less level in the gasoline in California, which of course makes gasoline in California much more expensive because of the way they have to process it. Now, there's a new study that finds heavy metals are in dark chocolate. So of all the products tested, 43% of the products, the chocolate products, tested for lead, okay? They exceeded the Proposition 65 limits. But 97.2 fell below, and it says far below the FDA lines. Okay, so just to give you some perspective, yes, dark chocolate has heavy metals in it. 43% failed the California stringency, but 97.2% far exceeded what we have on the FDA. Cadmium, 35% exceeded the Proposition 65, none, the USDA. Arsenic, no products exceeded the California Prop 65. So that's good. Of all the products tested, 97.2 products fell below the FDA for lead, although mean concentrations of both lead and cadmium exceeded the Proposition 65 standards. Okay, so we just need to know what we're getting and how much of it we're getting. Trade certifications such as fair trade and the non-GMO did not significantly affect the heavy metal ingredients. Now, this is something that I found very interesting because we always tell our people you want to look for the USDA organic and you want to look for the non-GMO label on your foods. Well, when they tested these chocolate products, they found that it didn't make any difference if it was organic or if it was non-GMO. Now, further on in the report, it says that some of the highest grade organic chocolates had actually more heavy metals, and they question whether or not this is because of the way that the chocolate is processed. We know that in most synthetic processing, most industrial processing, everything is done by machine. It's harsh, it damages the product, it strips it of nutrients and all that kind of stuff. When you're doing things organically, a lot of times these processes are much more gentle. They don't damage the product. And so the hypothesis is that when they are organic, they're more gently handled and therefore they just may contain more because they haven't been so roughly disrupted. And so I think, well, that's kind of a crazy thing that we get organic and we want organic because we don't want pesticides and herbicides sprayed all over it. However, if it occurs in the ground as a natural component of the ground, then we're just not going to be able to get away from it. So we need to understand that. That's kind of a crazy thing. So even if you're eating organic chocolate, you just need to be careful about heavy metal content. So it says that the health concerns with lead and cadmium, there are no safe levels of lead in the blood because even low levels can be toxic, according to a 2021 article in Toxics, which is a magazine. The central nervous system is particularly vulnerable to lead, potentially resulting in cognitive decline, fine motor control impairment, and attention-related issues, both in children and adults. Now, we know that when we have people that come in that have heavy mercury, heavy lead, heavy aluminum, they are going to have cognitive issues. And so we know that there is no safe level of those things in our body. So don't want to underestimate or understate how serious this is, but at the same time, the body processes things that occur naturally in the environment differently than the way it processes things that are synthetically made in the environment. Test scores on children who are exposed to lead are lower than children that are not exposed to lead. And this is according to a 2022 review in a magazine called Systematic Reviews. The authors stated that lead exposure can have irreversible effects on children's mental performance. This is why we make sure that our water is clean. This is why we make sure that our environment is as clean as we can get it, because we don't want these things happening with our children. Cadmium also poses significant health risk. It is a cardiovascular risk factor, and it may initiate or promote the progression of atherosclerosis, according to a review in current atherosclerosis reports. Cadmium may also increase blood pressure and risk kidney damage, according to the review. Increased risk of fractures, bone fractures, also are increased following cadmium exposure, according to a 2016 review in the magazine Medicine. So it's hard to say whether we really have any benefit from eating dark chocolate or not, depending on how much heavy metals are in there. According to Frame, very dark chocolate has been associated with improved cardiovascular health, improved cognitive performance, reduced chronic inflammation, and these potential health benefits have been modest. Even though they are there, they're not a striking difference, okay? An example of this is in a 2021 review of Nutrients, that's the name of the magazine, Nutrients, concluded that cocoa products improved triglycerides. However, it had no effect on blood pressure, blood glucose, cognitive function, skin quality, or quality of life, regardless of form, dose, or duration when consumed among healthy people. As with anything, this is a quote, it has to do with the background diet. So if you have someone that has a very low polyphenol, low flavonoid diet, and chocolate is one of their predominant sources, then in terms of flavonoids, it may be very beneficial. And this is why coffee is good, because it has the polyphenols in it. Now, we know that you want to get your bioflavonoids from your fruits and your vegetables. Coffee, in moderation, I'm okay with that. Obviously, I raised my hand a while ago. I am a chocolate eater. Now, I do not consume near as much chocolate as I used to. It would not be unusual for me to have a bag of Hershey's Kisses or a bag of those little chocolate miniatures and have a few. Can't tell you how many I had, wasn't counting, but I would have a few. Today, I do still have chocolate in my home. Normally, we get the Dove bars, and I'm not saying that that's the best bar to get, but I get the Dove dark chocolate. It's a 1 ounce portion, and it's very satisfying because it's very, very rich. It's dark chocolate, and that's the flavor that I particularly like. But I only have one, and I don't have it every day, and I don't have it every week. I couldn't tell you how often I have it, but it's there in case I feel the need. It's there, and now I'm going to be a little bit concerned because of the heavy metal content, although we do have products that remove heavy metals from the brain, heavy metals from the bloodstream, and that kind of thing. So you may or may not know that your dental work, especially if you have those amalgams in your mouth, the silver fillings, not really have silver in there, but they are full of toxic metals that every time you grind your teeth, every time you eat something hot, every time, and even cold too, excessive cold, it causes those mercury vapors to go right into the brain, which leads to heavy metal toxicity. There are remedies for that. So that even the report says there's no way to get that out of the brain, out of the body, that's not so. That just means that this is probably a medical professional, a chemical scientist who has no idea about the great health products that God gave us naturally that can work to remove heavy metals from the system. So if we have someone, this is another quote by Ms. Frame, if we have someone who already has a rich source of polyphenols in the diet, the contribution of chocolate is going to be pretty minimal. And that person is exposing themselves to more heavy metals from the chocolate without necessarily gaining the health benefits. It hurts my heart to say that because I think chocolate is just a happy food. And I think almost everybody enjoys it. I have met the odd person that did not enjoy it. But, it's sad to think that something that gives us so much pleasure could also be hurting us in our biochemistry, okay? The potential effects and risks associated with heavy metal exposure have not been fully accounted for in previous studies promoting the health benefits of the dark chocolate. Dr. Frame suggests a better approach is to look at the individual and ask, does this person need the bioflavonoids, the polyphenols in the chocolate before we decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So this is very much individualized medicine at its best, all right? I would just say, if you consume a lot of chocolate, then you probably are at risk for heavy metal toxicity. If you're like me and you have chocolate in your home, but you very rarely enjoy it, then you're not as at as big a risk. Now, I eat a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of salad. I do a lot of the bioflavonoids through my food. I also take the Pharmanex Life Pack Nano Vitamins, which are for us older people. Okay, it has all the things that we need in order to keep our brain working correctly, cardiovascular system working correctly, bone health, eye health, DNA health, all the things that older people need. So I take that as well, and it is full of bioflavonoids. So I'm getting antioxidants in my vitamins as well as in my food. So for me, overconsumption of chocolate would probably not be a good thing. Just putting things in perspective. There was a GWU study that concluded if contaminated products such as a whole are consumed in small amounts and infrequently by most, these contaminants will not be a public health concern, though perhaps it is still a concern on an individual basis. So an expert investigation conducted through our prior California Prop 65 settlement concluded that cadmium and lead are present in cocoa and cocoa beans and at a reduced level in chocolate products. So this is something that is naturally occurring. We're not going to get away from. So we have some products that people take, that if you are concerned about heavy metals, if you have consumed heavy metals, if you consume a lot of chocolate, or if you're a smoker, you have a high level of cadmium in your body, and that is just not good. And so we want to give you some hope, right, that these particular heavy metals that we get from environmental challenges, coffees, chocolate, those are things that we like and we enjoy. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying don't do that. But what I am saying, if you overindulge in that, or if you are in a high environmental toxicity situation, like if you're a dental hygienist, I think that is the most toxic medical job that you can have because of all of the different things that go into a dental office, the toxic materials. If you've had a lot of dental work, you have a lot of toxicity in your mouth, and it goes, as I said, into the brain. If you are a welder, you're working with metals, they are being burnt, and you're getting very small nanoparticles. You're just getting them. You get into the skin, you get into your airwaves, you're breathing them, all those kind of things. And so you are at more of a risk. If you deal with construction, timbers and that kind of thing, they're treated with chemicals to make them last and not rot, but you are being exposed to that. So we want to give you hope that there are things that you can do without necessarily giving up all of your dark chocolate if you don't want to do that. So heavy metal toxicity. So this is one of my favorite products. This is called ACZ. It is a nano zeolite. You spray it into the roof of your mouth. And what it does, it goes right it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it releases the heavy metal toxicity that may be in there. And what you're going to find, and what most people find after a couple of days, not weeks, but after a couple of days, the brain fog is gone, they're thinking more clearly, they're sharper, all that kind of thing. You can, if you have a lot of heavy metal toxicity, you can find that you get a headache and that kind of thing as you're releasing those toxic chemicals. So that's something just to be aware of. They want you a dosage to do 6 sprays twice a day, leading up to 12 sprays twice a day. Now, I have tons of silver fillings in my mouth. Not as many as I used to, because with age and whatnot, they've cracked and broken, and I've had to replace them, and I've replaced them with porcelain, which is a better alternative. When I was a little girl, my doctor he just drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. And I think that if I had known then what I know now, of course I wasn't the mother, I was the child, but we know now that there are ways that you can repair your teeth without drilling and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the damage has been done in my teeth. And so this is a really good product to bring that heavy metal toxicity out of the brain. This is another product that we have. This is cracked cell chlorella. Now, chlorella is a plant. You want to make sure that you get a cracked cell because the cracked cell goes into the tissues and brings the heavy metals out. So this is real easy. It's easy to get. This is the form that I use because I absolutely love Physica Energetics. That's the supplier that we use. I absolutely love them. They have some of the best products on earth, and we get really, really, really good results. And so that's why I continue to use them, because it gives us the results that we need when we're working with these specific things. So all this is cracked cell chlorella. You can get it anywhere. I can get it even off of Amazon. Not that I trust that, but if I'm doing something internally, if I'm ingesting something, I want to make sure that it is from a company that is extremely careful about their products. They're very careful about the grade of products and the purity of products that they give us. Not everybody is like that. And that's why you have extreme price differences, because when you have something that is handcrafted, handmade, right, you're going to have a much more expensive product than having something that has been industrial farmed. That doesn't mean that it's clean. It doesn't mean it doesn't have pesticides. It doesn't mean it doesn't have herbicides and that kind of thing. And so we want to make sure if we're ingesting anything, especially if we're trying to detox at the cellular level, we want to make sure that we've got a really good supplier, so we're not putting even further damage in our bodies. And this product is fairly new. I think we've had it a couple of years, and it is called Holoplexus. All right. I love this because this is it's kind of like a catch-all as far as cellular detox. And so it's got a binder in there. So it binds with heavy metals. It binds with funguses. It binds with mycoplasmas. It binds with all these things that we have in our body. So it's a really good product to use as a cellular detox. It also grabs the heavy metals. And so it's got several, I have to get my glasses on in order to read that, but it's got way more than just cracked cell chlorella in there. And it is formulated to grab, hold, and pull out of the body the toxic things that are in the body. So how do we know? How do we know if we have these things? Well, I've given you 2 guidelines before, but we're going to go over it again. If you are a man and you are barrel-chested, okay, you have toxicity in the body. If you are a female and you've got a muffin top with love handles, then you also are toxic at the cellular level. And so any of these products would be good. Are you necessarily heavy metal? Not necessarily, but there's a high degree of probability because we've got the chemtrails in the atmosphere. If you don't know what chemtrails are, you need to Google it. There's photos of even inside the plane, all these vats of chemicals that they're spraying out into the atmosphere. What are they exactly spraying? Nobody really knows for sure, but we think it's aluminum is a big component on there. If you are not aware of HAARP, and I think it's HAARP, I think that's how you spell it. But this is about climate control, and they tell you it is to make sure that we don't have any climate disasters. But if they can control the weather one way, they can control the weather in the opposite way. So I'm very suspicious about that. And I believe that the things, when they seed the clouds to cause rain, they're seeding the clouds with chemicals and heavy metals. And so we're getting exposed that way. When you're eating foods that are not organic, then you are getting exposed that way. If you eat a lot of bread and a lot of pasta, you're getting exposed that way, because here in America, we spray our crops with Roundup twice in order to get a higher yield. We do get a higher grain yield, but we also get contaminated grains that we then eat that then tear up our digestive system because of the heavy metal content. So that's a lot of information that I gave you today. What is your takeaway? If you eat dark chocolate, if you eat chocolate, eat dark chocolate. If you eat dark chocolate, do not consume more than 1 ounce per day. Okay, those are the guidelines. If you have a habit or a history of consuming a lot of dark chocolate, you may want to do one of these products in order to get the heavy metal toxicity removed, so that you are not going to be subject to cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, all the things that we read about today. So lots of information. I'm still going to have my little dark chocolate pieces. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't have them every day. I don't even have them every week, okay? But when I want one, I get one, and I'm satisfied with one, okay? I'm not worried. I do detoxes all the time. I take care of my body. I take care of the system. I know that the environment is dirty. Until we go to the Garden of Eden again, we're going to have dirty environment, and we're just going to be subject to what is in the environment. But we can be very proactive with these products and remove those substances from our body so that we can live long, live strong. And that's what I want for me. That's what I want for you. And so this weekend, and the watchword for this weekend is rest, recover, restore, replenish. And I will see you next week. Thanks so much for joining me today.